Yes, I was very lucky from my early age to be surrounded with the amazing musicians. I was 11 when I was sent to Moscow to the Central Special Music School, which is a part of a Moscow Conservatory, to study, to go to school there, because I don't know, now it's maybe not so usual anymore, but at the time, the people from, for example, Menuhin School in London or the Central Special Music School in Moscow would travel around the world and look for very talented young musicians, young children. And so, I don't know if you know, maybe the pianist Ivo Pogorelic.
Oh, yes.
Yes, he was, and so they have chosen two of us in Belgrade, and we were sent, we were 11. We went by the train, 48 hours to Moscow. Yeah, that was like this. I remember really this moment when we were leaving. It was, I mean, at the time, as a child, I didn't know what to expect. We were both very curious, and we wanted something, to see how it is. Yeah, so then I went to study there, and so my main teacher was Rostropovich, but I was mainly having lessons with his assistant, because at that age, for sure, there are a lot of, usual things to learn. And so I was having lessons every day with the assistant, yes. And I remember also in the conservatory, and also we went to the concerts of Oistrakh, of Sviatoslav Richter was playing very often in our school, all his new programs, when he would, at the time he was learning all the preludes and fugues by Bach, and he was playing in our school. Shostakovich was there, Khachaturian, the great pedagogues, and yeah, so it was, in a way, it was a difficult time, because there were a lot of injustice. I mean, that was the time of Brezhnev. It was quite strict communist regime.
Ilyich Brezhnev, General Secretary of the Serbian Communist Party and top man in the Kremlin hierarchy.
Yes, I mean, this was one side, but the other side was like, for me, Rostropovich was really like a light, like a big sun, like a fire, like something, even now when I think about him, it's for me, it's like a planet. It's something, you cannot really say what makes it, but somehow his artistic and also human strength was really amazing. And I must say, sometimes at school, as I say, there was a lot of injustice, a lot of unpleasant moments, but this would keep me really completely optimistic. I mean, and all the, so to say, pains and injustice I would experience, I would know there is another side in life. And I think this is very, very important to always have in life, because there is a lot of injustice and a lot of unpleasant thing happenings with all this. I mean, at the moment also with the wars, with the crisis and so. And very, very important is also to have good examples, see the people you really love and you also respect and admire, and especially in the arts. I think it's wonderful. We have this luck to have this amazing people. I mean, but just one has to see them. But as a child, I mean, it was very easy for us. Yeah, so then Rostropovich had to leave at 75. So I was there from 1970 when I was 11. At 1975, I also remember, being in his dacha, in his, dacha is in Russian, this houses outside of the town. It's summer house, but it was also a winter house. It was beautiful in winter. That also made a big part of my life there, this nature in Russia. I'm already half Russian because my mother is born in Macedonia, but from Russian parents. My grandparents, they immigrated in 1918 to Paris from Russia, from Kiev. They were Russian, but from Kiev, so to say this aristocrat class. And then the revolution started, and they lost everything, and it was also quite dangerous, so they emigrated. And then later my grandfather was an engineer building bridges, and a group of Russian engineers went to Macedonia to build bridges and the roads and so. My grandmother was not very happy. She was very artistic and she loved the balls and, going out and literature and paintings and so. So when my mother became a musician and my aunt became a painter, my grandmother, she was really living in this idealistic world. They had a huge library. She was always ordering all the Russian books from Paris when they continued to live in former Yugoslavia. So I was already in this Russian culture, but we never went there. We never went because you would not travel to the Soviet Union. You would travel to Italy, and so we could, with a Yugoslavian passport, we could actually travel to Soviet Union. But all our family, most of our family was already away. We had a family in Hawaii. That was nice to travel to Hawaii, in New York, and so this family of my grandparents. But in Russia, there were few left, actually, few people. Anyway. And then for me, the big part also of this time in Russia was the nature there. I mean, this in winter, for example, the woods in winter with the, I'm not sure how in English, Birken in German, how you call this, trees with white, yeah, probably, and with the snow, this very long winters. With the snow, with the moon, with this beauty, it was quite dark. It would get bright only at 11, half past 11, but still the nights were beautiful. This cold, the ice, skiing, going on ice on the lakes and things like this. And so that we could go often to Rostropovich's dacha and spend time there. And so Solzhenitsyn was there in this. He had a separate house next to the dacha. And, I mean, I didn't talk to him, but I mean, he was there, very, very dark and very, yeah. And Shostakovich was there also. He had a dacha there. I don't know if you know Sakharov. That there was this he got Nobel Prize for Physics. He was also very critical about political regime. And actually, Brezhnev also had a dacha not far away. His neighbor. I mean, how it is. Yeah, so, and then he left, and Rostropovich left. So my parents wanted me to stay there because it's a very good school, it's a very good diploma you can get from Moscow Conservatory. But I felt that when Rostropovich left, this was empty. I had the possibility to go to Geneva, to be actually in the conservatory there, but studying with Guy Fallot. but Rostropovich said, but take lessons with Pierre Fournier, and you must take lessons with Pierre Fournier, and for sure, I mean, Pierre Fournier was living there, but only privately one could take lessons. And there was this moment Rostropovich played in Geneva, and Pierre Fournier came to his concert. I mean, I don't know if you know, Pierre Fournier was a very, very elegant and a distinguished man, very, very polite, very special, and was already very old at that time. I mean, I don't know, over 70 probably. And then Rostropovich, so to say, presented me to Pierre Fournier, and said, yes, Pierre, please, can you teach my formal student? And that was at the beginning a little bit, because strange, because then I wrote a letter. At that time, you even didn't call a person. I mean, that was telephone existed. That was, 76. But you would not call, you would write a letter to ask for a lesson. So I wrote a letter politely with the help of the friends in French, if I could take a lesson. And then he answered, he gave me some time, but he said he thinks that it would be better to follow the advices of my teacher, a formal teacher or something, because actually he was such a different musician. He was in so many ways complete opposite musician of how Rostropovich was, and they respected each other, but they were completely opposite. And so since it wasn't me somehow to make this step, but Rostropovich actually presented, I don't know, it was at the beginning, he was a little bit reserved, but then, I mean, then was wonderful somehow. Then the contact developed, and I think for him was also very nice, because in Moscow we were used, when you go to the first lesson, the teacher tells you what you need to prepare to play. And then you come to the first lesson and you usually learn the whole piece by heart and you know it. You don't go for the first lesson with your music and you ask for this and that fingerings. I mean, you usually prepare the whole piece, even if you have just 1 week. I mean, we were not trained like this. And I think for Fournier that was very nice, because most of the people in, so to say, West Europe or America, or his private students were not used to that, I mean, at that time also, like, the people would, come and not be so. So I think that was for him also a very, very nice thing about it. And the connection between, there were not many Russian students there at the time. Then only later somehow it opened. And with Fournier was like this, he was married to the former wife of Piatigorsky. Yeah. So Madame Piatigorsky, and she was still alive then, and so she was a Russian strong woman, a Russian Jewish stronger woman, and she was sitting always in a big living room with a nice view on a Geneva lake, and then we would pass there. She was not in a very good mood. I think she was also very ill, and then she died quite soon. And then we were walking to quite a small room. I mean, it was a very small room. His practicing room, where there's a piano, and he would sit here, very, very close. There was no space, like he'll sit really next to you and listen to all details. But it was amazing to listen to him playing. He was playing a lot, and the sound in this dry room, so private. That was wonderful. And then after that, so I was in Geneva for 3 years, studying with him like this, and I finished at the conservatory. I finished all I could finish. And then I also actually asked Rostropovich what he thinks should I do now. He said, okay, now you should go to Juilliard to study with Shapiro. Okay, then I went, I spent 3 months with some friends in New York, and so to prepare the studies and to see. And I actually didn't like New York at all. I really felt very, very stressed, and I don't know, I didn't feel well. And but I played and then my friends in Juilliard, they had some from the also Russian friends from school, the Zima Sitkevetsky, and both daughters of Rostropovich were actually living there. I was staying with them, and they said, "Yeah, go to study to Rose, don't go to Shapiro." And so what to do, and then with Shapiro I also didn't feel, and Rose was Leonard Rose. He's not maybe so well known, but was really also amazing cellist, and really such a generous and wonderful person. His wife was also named Xenia, yes. and so I could play for him. And he was very, very supportive and organized all the scholarships. So I would have everything covered, because also my parents said, but how, when you want to go to Juilliard? I mean, you have to pay living and studying, and, from Yugoslavia don't have any scholarship. And because he, like in America, there were a lot of private sponsors, and so he could arrange all that. My mother made all the papers, all the translations. It's endless things that at that time you couldn't do online. You had to do everything like this and just send. Okay, and then I came, and I was in Europe, anyway, still living in Geneva. And I went for a master class with André Navara actually it was in Montenegro, it's a part of former Yugoslavia on an island, Sveti Stefan, very beautiful. And we all arrived there, and there was an earthquake, a strong earthquake. I mean, we nearly all died, because if we would have been in that room, because it was early in the morning, we would have been probably all, the room was completely destroyed. But yeah, and then there was an earthquake, and then Navara left, so the class didn't start. It was a day before. And then all of his class from Detmold, I mean, it was Marcio Canero, Christoph Richter, Christoph was not there, he was my future husband, but Jeroen Rolling. So a lot of people, students from Detmold, came to this master class in Montenegro. And then after the earthquake, we were blocked. We couldn't leave because the roads were destroyed. Navara left by helicopter, important people left by helicopter. But we all stayed there for days, and we became amazing friends. And, like in this situation, because we were expecting tsunami, or because it's Montenegro, it's actually called the Black Mountains, is Montenegro, So, because they're like in Côte d'Azur, they're only mountains and sea. Mm-hmm. So there you don't have really big beaches, mountains, and then we're expecting if the next earthquake comes, so the mountain is going to fall down or a tsunami is going to come. And so we were all sitting there. And for sure, in this extreme situation, you become very close to each other. And then I decided to go to the masterclass in Siena, where, Navara was teaching. And before I go to Juilliard to study in September, so the masterclass was in August. And I went there, and, I fell in love with my future husband, and I felt so well in this class, and Italy, and it wasn't my first time, but nearly my first time in Italy. Maybe I was once with my parents before. And then I said to my mother, I'm not going to Juilliard. She was, completely couldn't understand how can I do that, go to Detmold. Where is Detmold? Why Detmold? What this decision? You don't have any scholarship, and how you're going to survive, and it's completely wrong to do this. And but like at that age, one doesn't doubt so much. I mean, later, I think in life one starts to doubt. I think, is it right? Is it wrong? And I was 20 years old, and and then I came to that world. So and then so Navara was a completely different type of person and a musician. He was extremely open, extremely natural, extremely. So Rostropovich was also natural, but Navara was like like South countries like Italy, France, from the countryside people. I mean, he was really he came from a small town. He was a peasant somehow. I mean, they and then so that was a little bit like Casals. So it was really this kind of continuation. And also in Siena, when we were there, we would always listen to. There was some possibility to listen to the recordings of Casals teaching, and from my childhood, my father loved Casals, and we were listening to these Bach suites, and that was always ideal. And then suddenly there is this man who is smoking all the time. It's so similar to Casals, not only smoking, but the voice, the everything, and he in the whole class he was really like a father or a grandfather, because he was already the age of a grandfather, but he was very much. So I was very shy at the time, and I remember at the beginning in Siena, the usual thing was that everybody would take breakfast together at the Piazza Grande, or how is it called? Piazza del Campo in Siena. And so everybody would go to this Fontegaia cafe and to take a breakfast together with maître, we call maître. And for me, it was really so hard to, somehow go, because there was his class. I knew people already, but and I would always somehow come and sit down somewhere in the corner, until one day he really said angrily, Xenia, girl, it's normal to give a hand to the maître when you come to greet, begrüßen, to say hello to the maître when you come in the morning, and I would not do it, because I was so shy. Because it's normal to come and at the time I would always also give a kiss, like in France especially. I was like, hello, good morning, maître, how did you sleep, and so. And for me, I was, like, and he thought, what is this girl? She thinks that she's the greatest, probably I looked like this, always the shy people, they look like they think they're great. And and then I had to practice this to go every morning saying, bonjour, maître. So, but then with the time, he was, if you had a problem, he would always say, come and we will have a coffee or the breakfast together. So that was a coffee, the breakfast was before actually. And talk about a problem or things like this, and so he was really like this, because when I was in Moscow with Rostropovich, I think he had this feeling of the class, but I was too young. I was not in the conservatory class. I was, come sometimes, and we would have school, and we had this very strict regime, and there it was amazing. I mean, and the whole class was, such an atmosphere, and so much of humor, so much of warmth, so much of support to each other, and everybody would go through terrible crisis. He was very strict with you have to play exactly the way he says, and it was his way of, because he thought, now you're 2 years studying with me, you have to do the things like that. And then you have all your life to do whatever you want. But to learn something, it was this old way of teaching, which is also very good. I think, we really admired him, and we wanted to do everything as he does, and it's normal. At the time you study with somebody, you want to learn everything, and then you can do whatever you want later, and. So then as I said, after all this, I decided to come to study to Detmold, and went to all my possible crises, because I had a completely different technique. The technique is very, very different from Russian technique. we always learned, don't do this, exactly what Navara says, do this. And the opposite, don't do this, what the Russian technique is. And it's, where you hold the bow, how you hold your thumb, left hand, right hand, where you put the cello. I had a very high, this Rostropovich end pin, when you play like this. And so in Siena, the first year was great. He did not insist on anything. I was just playing, and he liked my playing. And then I came to Detmold, and then, I started to change the whole technique. And then I remember really sitting 8 hours per day in front of the mirror and struggling and not finding it, feeling uncomfortable and going through all this process. And he the whole class said, yes, we know this is normal. And Navara was also saying, oh, yes, I understand. But, your crisis, 3 months is nothing. I had, I don't know what we say, 3 years of crisis. And he was already playing in the orchestra, l'Opéra Comique in Paris. He was playing, and he always had, solo concerts. He was very much asked to play, but he didn't want so much. He didn't like to travel to America. He hated long travel, and he was like very simple, but he didn't like his sound playing in the orchestra. And so he said he was like practicing Schumann concerto mainly in the beginning for 3 years. And he says his wife, she couldn't stand this anymore. He said, elle prenait son chapeau et sortait. At the time he would always take a hat. So she would take her hat and go out immediately in the morning when he started to practice the same Schumann concerto to find the sound, to find his sound, friend of mine, Walter Despel, a very good Croatian cellist, who also studied in Moscow actually, but he was quite much older, 10 years maybe older. He always was very supportive to Ivo Pogorelic and me, coming to visit us in the boarding school and bring us oranges or something because the food was terrible, and you couldn't buy oranges, You could, the food was really at the time very, very bad. I mean, nothing fresh. Anyway, at school, at the boarding school, nothing. But in the shops, you could go and wait for hours the whole night to maybe buy some oranges or banana or something. And foreign people could go to the special shops, so he could go to special shops and buy oranges or something. He would bring us oranges. And then, he liked my playing, and so anyway, and he asked me if I would take his professorship for a year, because he wanted to do some more playing, and so, and I was really like 23 or so, and then wow. But I was always interested in teaching, because with Ivo we also always thought that we would do a good school when in boarding school. When we were going grown up, we will do a very nice school, not like this, and not so with this injustice and things. So we're thinking about teaching, and then my father was very interested in psychology. I mean, I read all the books of, psychoanalysis and Freud and Jung and Adler and Horvath, I don't know what else, what not. And so that was this combination about, how actually all this works, because psychology is very important, I think, for teaching. And my both parents are music teachers. My father is a conductor, but they were amazing pedagogues, because he was conducting orchestras and choirs in the schools or like this middle schools, college. And my mother, pianist, also have really, really very good pedagogues, both of them. And so this I also saw all my childhood, only talking about that, much less about performing. They were also performing, but that was for them less important. Yeah, and also probably because of that. And then I started to teach. All the students were older than me, all this, Balkan boys, and I had to be very, very, very somehow to learn to keep a lot of distance and be very sure. And I was very passionate teaching very long, until late in the evenings, because I would come and stay for a few days, and I had quite a lot of concerts actually at the time, and and I was writing already on my teaching method and scale and how to do that, so and all this. So, when you're young, you believe you discovered something nobody did, and then then I gave up the idea of writing this scale book. There are many actually scale books anyway. Methods. This I also say very often to my students. I think myself, in the arts or generally in life, when one has to find the truth for oneself somehow, and what one likes, and it's not about other people. They say they like, they don't like. One can listen to this, but it's not that what actually makes us develop and work. Really. So to sometimes it is difficult, and I think that when it's difficult, it has maybe more profound results. So until then, I actually didn't play much of chamber music, I must say. It was somehow... in Geneva, we had some chamber music, so to say, obligatory. That was very good system, because you had to have 2 exams. One chamber music with the piano, another string quartet. So with 2 separate subjects. And very good teachers, but like for the exams, I played 2 Beethoven quartets, Beethoven and something else. I don't know what was, the Schubert probably, and Schubert trio. I remember the B flat, and it was amazing. And I listened to the old Casals recordings, and I was that's. And so after in that time, Gideon Kramer, whom I also knew from Moscow, invited me to the Lockenhaus Festival, which was it was the beginning of these chamber music festivals, where you would go somewhere, be with these great people and live like in communism. Everything was paid. You would not gain any money, but you would live there and have all the food and the hotel. And we could even go, it's a very small town, to the shop and buy everything. If you have this badge with the artist, you can take everything from the shops. There was one shop. It's very small, but you know, so the people felt comfortable. You could talk on the phone in the hotel without extra, you know, just everything was paid. What the people, also had to change it after a few years because the people would call for 10 hours to America, so that was over the top, you know. But, yeah, so and then I really started this chamber music, you know, discovery, and at the beginning it was very difficult. I mean, to play syncopas and to not to, you know, jump into the main voice all the time, and yes, but it was wonderful. And so there, for the first time, I, for example, met Sándor Végh. He came there with his camarada in Salzburg. It was amazing. And Nicolas Anoncourt also came. We played under his direction, and you know, so these things. And so like this, I mean, my later studies, when I write Sebök and Sándor Végh, were actually connected to these chamber music festivals. I mean, to Sebök, I went also to the master class, and I was already, I don't know, 25 or something, I mean, you know, after finished studies. And that was also a completely different world. It was amazing because he was more kind of philosophical, talking about everything. And it was in Switzerland, in also an amazing place, this Ernen, in the mountains, in the Alps. And then he would say, you know, like, you have to play the chamber music like you're flying in a cosmos like this, and you react to each reaction, each movement of your colleague playing. And you know, he would always combine somehow the nature with the music, and somehow the universe with the music. And the same was with Sándor Végh somehow. Also in his festival in Prešov in England, he always says, yeah, don't play like the modern building, play like in the nature. That's never, the metronomic things are not like a machine, it's all waves. There is a wave coming, there is a rhythm, but that's a different, and so also using the bow, never like completely straight, always. So I learned enormously. I mean, somehow, maybe I was too young with all this musical, but I think with the cellists, I didn't learn so much about music. I mean, I did, but they were not talking so much about Rostropovich. Yes, he talked very much with the imagination, especially with the child. Always like something, play like a drop of water in the early morning or something, to have a special sound. And that for me, very, very, for a child, very easy. When you say this is a grown-up person, so should I use more bow or less bow close to the bridge? You start to think. But as a child, you don't think. Yeah. I start with this, with Bach and with period instruments and so. Yeah, so in the time, for example, um, actually when I was young, so I was like in 70s, I was in Moscow, and how we played Bach, it was very different. I remember also Rostropovich always coming from organ or piano or I don't know, something, not so much thinking about how you use the bow. He was more thinking about music in general, Bach's music, which it doesn't matter on which instrument you play and in which period you play it. You know, this music is so somehow timeless, no? So more than many other composers of that period. And so this approach was one possibility. And he always said that he would not record Bach because he doesn't feel ready for it. He actually just did something in the church, but very late in his life, but he never recorded. So it was always some work in process. And already with my father, I mean, I always played Bach. I mean, for all of us, I mean, somehow the Bach suites, we only have this 6 suites. I mean, not so much compared to all the pianists and so, but we always played them a lot. And as I said, my father was a conductor of choirs. And he always said that when he will be old, that he will go become a monk and live in one of these incredibly beautiful old monasteries we have in Serbia from 13th century, you know, Byzantic. Live there and lead the choir, you know, because there is this peace to really, you know, and the church music is very, very beautiful. I mean, there are also some written things, and like Mokranec, Vasily Mokranec, for example. So the music in Russian Orthodox or so Serbian Orthodox churches is we're not allowed to have any instruments, so no organ, no instruments ever, only voice. So this is this Orthodox part of it. And when we were children, my sister and me, so when we would travel by car from Belgrade or from Niš, actually I'm born in Niš, where my father was a director of the opera. We would travel for days to go to the seaside in summer. So we would spend mainly 3 months traveling on the seaside with a tent. You know, like, and we would take our instruments, my sister a violin, I would take a cello. And so we would quietly, you know, go and spend quite a lot of time in these monasteries, you know, on a way. We would, he would choose one of them, Studenica, Sopoceni. It's really, I recommend everybody to go when you visit Serbia. Don't only go to Belgrade to drink. It's very cheap alcohol and a very nice partying atmosphere. But not only that, I mean, go also to some of these towns is very, very special. The nature and the art, this Byzantine art, and you know how it is now. I mean, now these monasteries are nearly empty. They're not much interest. There are not many monks. But at that time, I think that it was, you know, it was partly forbidden. Also, it was a communist country. So my parents, they had a little bit to hide it, to hide it, this interest. Yeah, you cannot. Only when my father was already pensioned, you know, in retired, he could really lead the choir, church choir. Before that, no. Especially if you're a director of a school or an institution in a communist time, you couldn't do that. It wasn't that strict like in Russia. It was a little bit different, you know, socialism, much more free, but still. Yeah, and so what I wanted to say, so for me, as we always, you know, learned from our parents, Bach was very religious, and for me, Bach was always in these monasteries. And his music was always kind of, I connected Bach to this, because for me, religion was there. You know, somehow we didn't have really religious education from our parents. My grandmother was very religious. She would go to these Russian churches. We would go to all the festivities, but we would not talk so much about religion. My sister and me, yes. You know, with times somehow the people had to be very clever, the all grown-ups, so that the children were also. I would say I always knew that a material way of thinking is not right for me. You know, also in the philosophy, I would not think. I would always think that the idea is first, which will materialize. Mm-hmm. And I completely believe in it. So I also believe that the physical world is very much influenced by a spiritual world, by our, thoughts and not materialistic energies, which now they also kind of can prove more and more. So you cannot really separate what is materialistic, what is idea. Cannot really separate. It's all together. But for me, these these monasteries were very, very special. And so then, and then the life goes and they play Bach and I learned this and that. But always my dream was to play Bach in one of these churches. But it's not allowed to bring an instrument in a church there. So for years I was kind of asking, and then I had, some influential friends, professors of theology and this and that, being friends with, patriarch and things. But still, it would go close, but not really, to make a recording or something. Until one day, a good friend of mine, a composer, who was traveling from Ohrid, which is a Macedonia festival, to Belgrade by car, stopped in this Napučani, this monastery, and somehow asked, and they gave them permission for 1 day.
1 day.
1 day. And we went, and quite soon, and then I found this team from Belgrade, and we all arrived, and I played once, and we recorded it. Very, very influenced by Arnoncourt at that time, and Bilsma, Johanna Bilsma, and all the, because it's so much more simple and in some way pure, and so always kind of looking for this simplicity and some purity, but not losing the very, very important, what side is this emotional state, emotional meaning it's emotional, it's also mental. I mean, it's all together, but really the meaning of this music. And I find very, very important to very much take care of being truly in a, really, to say honestly, in the music, in the state. So like the actors, they work so much on changing for a role. And musicians sometimes, instrumentalists, I mean singers, yes, but instrumentalists, they forget, they think about playing the right notes in a right way somehow, that would be enough. But already at Bach times, I mean, his son, in this, how to play Chamber of Philipp Emanuel Bach, this, he writes so much about the importance of Gemütszustand. So what is your emotional attitude? What is your mood? But profoundly, and also very connected, for example, to the religion, to all the stories. So because the Bible, it's also it's like a book of human, how to say, psychology, emotions, thoughts, ideas. There all the stories, like one also says, the fairy tales. It's just to learn. Greek theater is the same for the people. They didn't have a psychologist to go to the psychoanalyst. They went to the theater, and they would experience all this jealousy and happiness and conflict and how to resolve it, and so all this symbolic meaning. So in the music is the same, in the arts, how we approach the world, ourselves, everything, how we can deal with the whole cosmos, with everything. And there are always this symbolic stories we have to I think, create for ourselves, for each piece, for each movement, for each passage, for, to really exactly connect to the composer's idea. Because if we're honest, and if we really take time for this, we can. It's not that, I mean, composer, he lived there, who knows what he thought. No, it is like through the words of, Shakespeare or Goethe or something, you understand, the ideas, the feelings. And as Brahms said, the music is difficult to describe with words, not because it doesn't say anything, but because it talks about even more, how to say, this precise, sensitive, and subtle things, more subtle things. So it's a little bit difficult with describe the words if you want to, publish it. But for yourself, for oneself, it's not difficult. I mean, one just really needs to see this as a main work we do. Our main work is not instrumental. Our main work is musical. And it's again this idea of coming from the idea. If the idea is very, very clear what you want to hear, how you feel, how, then the technical resolutions, they come much easier. In my experience, with some composers, I mean, the composers are totally different. How their way of working with the players and musician. Some are very, very precise and a little bit, how to say, anxious. that it's not going to be exactly what they want. So for sure, as an instrumentalist, one needs to go through their own, so to say, process of understanding the piece, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult because one has a feeling, you know, you cannot go, you have to go somewhere else, and so even if the result is the same, so I even don't know if it's maybe better not to meet too soon the composer. Mm-hmm. You know, not because sometimes in life, you know, the composers also they write late. It's not that they write like, you know, one makes a date and says, but it's never, you know, 1 year before. It's always 2 months before, you know. So even if it's planned much earlier, and I think it's good. So my advice is actually to get quite far in their own, so to say, understanding and ability to also play and then perform when one first meets with a composer, and then also I think very, very important. I mean, it's great to always, if you can, meet the composer, even if the piece is not written for you, the composer is alive, and even if sometimes, you know, that Fournier was saying when he was young, he loved this Kodai, Zoltan Kodai sonata, and he really prepared it very well, and went to play it to Kodai, and so he played the whole piece and thought it went quite well, and there was a silence after it, and then after some minutes Kodai said, "I didn't write a rhapsody, I wrote a sonata." And that was it, you know, and still Fournier was always saying about it, because he continued to teach. I even don't know if then they worked on some details. I suppose, but he was saying this, and then Fournier from there on, he was always saying this to everybody, and now I say it also to everybody, you know. So this is very, very important. So if you haven't. And I had chance to look at work also with you know, Kurtag or with Holliger, who are also, Kurtag, for example, is extremely demanding and extremely this, you know, you never do right. I mean, what he wrote, what he writes is also very, very precise and special and extreme. And whatever you do is never enough. It's never right. I mean, and also when he works with orchestra, and still, I mean, it doesn't stop. I think the musician, but to like this music and to really play it. And not long ago now we played a string trio by Kurtag, so he was not there, and it's you know he's still alive, and we worked this with him, but now you play it really freely somehow also, but I think it's in his, so to say, spirit, but maybe not as genius. I think we have after some moment become free and play it. I mean, work as much as possible with the composer, but then it must become your thing, and your conviction and your understanding, and you know, very often, I mean, you take this piece again in 2 years and you have a completely opposite mind. You think, oh my God, I was so stupid. How could I do it like this? And, you know, but I mean, it is life. I mean, also the composers, sometimes they took the pieces and said, oh, no, I don't want to hear this anymore. Or sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they think, oh, how, I also have some friends, composers, how could I write something like this when I was 20? It's amazing. You know, you're also surprised because some pieces are born like this. I think very important is to practice the own concentration, or what I say is this Gemütszustand. So what is your emotional and mental and physical state, and connect this to music, I mean to the passage you play. So for example, even practicing, very important not to forget what is this passage about. So we can practice slowly, we can intonation, this and that, trying to find how to play it. But it always should be alive and have the phrasing, the emotion. And so, because when we have to play in situations like the concerts, exams, auditions, and so on, it is a lot of pressure. I mean, I don't know anybody who is not nervous, who is not wanting to do the best, and you look like in the sports, for example, also the people, you have this 1 minute to do a run, and you prepare for so long, and you never know, you know, we are not machines, so you never know how you're going to feel, what's going to happen. It is a very challenging, how to say, task, because we are not machines, and we want to be perfect. Then we want to present what we imagine, what we like, what we love, what we practice for hundreds of hours, you know. And I think what is the best help is actually to practice this concentration on music, so we don't have negative thoughts and this fear thoughts, because we're for sure going to be nervous, and we're for sure going to feel a little different in the body. And how much you prepare always is going to be something you're not expecting. So expect unexpected situation. You know, it's always going to be, you cannot, you know, you can prepare the chair, you can do this and that. I think I also suggest to do all this practical work, you know, like look at a good chair, look at, try the acoustic and whatever, you know, this kind of things. Also being professional, having the instrument and the bow in a good condition. Also being physically in a good condition, very important, I think, for all the performing artists. Is important to you know, work on you know, being in a good shape, good shape, and always also try to be aware how your thoughts go, or the negative thoughts, and how you can you know, not work against yourself. I mean, even maybe people around do say, you know, for example, I play with a pianist in France. It always calms her to talk badly. Oh, I feel terrible. It's going to be a terrible concert, and I'm not prepared. I don't know what to do, and this. You know, so for her, it calms her down. I understood this after, but for me, it was always, you know, somehow difficult, because I would, you know, start to worry about her, and I don't know, and to worry about me, or I have another friend, also pianist. She says, there are very important critics in the hall. We have to play well. I mean, for her, this is also something. I mean, for me, it's not a. So I mean, you have to also. I talk from my perspective and what I think is good. For me, for example, it's not good to think too much about critics. It's good to think about. I love to play, for example, for my grandmother, who was not a musician, who loved arts. I loved more to play for her than for my parents, for example. They were very supportive, but they were still musicians. They were more critical. So I think it's good to play for people to imagine, even if you go to the Probespiel or something, not to play for cellists or, I mean, for violinists, whatever instrument, but for play for the others. And to play, to present a piece. So why it's very good for us to play contemporary music, because you don't present yourself, you present a composition. You don't think about how I'm going to do it, much less. You think, are the people going to understand this composition? I want to present this composition that the people say it's a great composition, it's a great composer. You don't want the people to say, okay, it's played well, but it's a bad music, no? So then that's not not your goal. I mean, if your goal like this, then better don't play. So you have to play the music you like. I mean, avoid really to play the music you don't like. I have to say another anecdote. You know that Casals was playing a Dvorak concerto in Paris, and he was quite young. And the conductor he was rehearsing with said, you know, between us, this is not the greatest Dvorak piece. You know, this end and then this. And Casals was completely, you know, devastated and said, if you don't change your mind until tomorrow, I will not play a concert. And then, you know, he was very like this. And then apparently the next day, even Debussy came, you know, Debussy in Paris, he was still alive, came to you know, to help. And the conductor didn't really change his mind. He kind of tried to convince Casals this is not the greatest piece. And Casals was absolutely devastated and cancelled the concert. And there was a process, you know, so he lost the process, had to pay money. But he writes in his book, but I was right. And so this is a very good example, actually. I mean, not everybody, you know, can be, but he was a really, really very consequent, you know, how you say that if he thought something also in the political, when Franco came on the power, he left Spain. I mean, he was not supposed to emigrated and never accepted that. So I think that this also in the arts like this. I mean, he played the music. He really believed. He didn't play much of a contemporary music. He actually was so busy in this other, you know, amazing also chamber music things and doing so much in his life. I mean, for the understanding of music and so, for example, Sándor Végh was very influenced by Casals. I mean, Sándor Végh played a lot with Casals and talked so much about Casals. I mean, especially when you were cellist, he was all the time, you know, talking how important it is not to become a danger of wanting to play everything beautiful and smooth. The life is not beautiful and smooth. The nature, the music is not always beautiful and smooth, no. I mean, especially our, so to say, this, so to call it classical or serious music, which is both descriptions are not right. But this music is so profound, and there is everything. It's really life. It's really life. It's like a learning book for life. I mean, you can learn everything through this music. I mean, you know, and understand it somehow. You know, the shape, the life, the rules of life, of nature, everything. With these genius composers and such a treasure. So I mean, so this danger of playing everything, you know, beautiful and pretending some feelings to be successful. This is, I think, very maybe it can bring some success, but it's not satisfying. And so also, like, for example, who may influence very much is András Schiff, you know, and also with the pianist I play now, this Bach sonatas, Shaga Nosrati, she's his assistant. But she also, you know, she's from Iran. I mean, she's Persian, born in Germany. But she was like very, very young and fall in love with Kunst der Fuge, last work by Bach. It's a miracle. And like a very young girl, she recorded this Kunst der Fuge. And András heard it and he thought, my God, he never played Kunst der Fuge. I mean, because he thinks he's not, for the first time with his 70th birthday in last December, before that he never played Kunst der Fuge, just studied. And this girl suddenly played this Kunst der Fuge with such a maturity and you know, knowledge, intuition, what it is, I mean, everything. And so this connection somehow came. Then he asked her, they played some Bach concertos together, and she studied then with him, and now she said, you know, this in life, how it happens. I mean, this miracles. I mean, it's but it's important to you know, like I think generally in the world, you know, now we talked about how the danger of become a little bit more superficial because of the time, not having enough time, not having enough calmness, you know, and then actually then there are much more stress and more conflicts, and all these wars come from it. I must say, I really think, because if the people are not stressed and not in fears and not in you know, there would be no wars. It's actually just I mean, what all the religious say, yeah. So go deeper into the understanding, and it's also very much this emotional attitude, so the Gemütszustand, you know, like it's not so intellectual. I mean, it's all together. And so the music is the greatest tool for it. I mean, for us who actually play and actively work, and also for the listener, for sure. I mean, for the people who are open, who are calm enough to listen. Yeah, because it's not something you can listen in 1 minute on Instagram. No, you have to a little bit, you know, become calm. You know, for example, now TikTok, literature, very good. No, so there a lot of young people. How is it called now? There are a lot of young people. They read this a little bit more novel-like things. You know, the people 14, 15, 16. They're big groups, a lot of girls, and they come like this to the literature. And you know, they read books. They don't read you know, online. Mm-hmm. You heard about it. Yeah, I heard like people talking about also you know, good critics for literature. They really go now there because it's a huge potential worldwide to bring people to this more profound. I mean, so with the music, maybe we will also find, I mean, you know, some really to bring young people, because the pop music is good, but the music we do is even better, maybe, you know, for more of the subtle things, you know, feelings and unhappiness, feelings of unhappiness and fear and depression. The music can help a lot. I mean, I really absolutely sure know.